Okay, please take your seats. I now declare the April Council meeting open at 6:30 p.m. and welcome all those in attendance. I now invite Councillor Lee to read the acknowledgement to country.
Thank you. The City of Melville acknowledges the Bibbulmun people as the traditional owners of the land on which the city stands today and pays its respect to the Whadjuk people and elders, both past and present.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lee. I draw your attention to the disclaimer on the screen. I draw your attention to the affirmation of civic duty and responsibility on the screen. And the advice of audio-visual live streaming and recording on the screen. Now, to assist me with the smooth running of our meetings, if you plan on asking a question during public question time and you haven't already submitted the question to us in writing, it would be appreciated if you could complete a question time form found on the table to your left and hand it to an officer prior to the commencement of public question time. I also take the opportunity to welcome the community in attendance at the public gallery tonight, and we'll be discussing and making decisions on matters you have an interest in. The City is committed to listening to the community, and I ask you to assist with our decision-making process through the mutual respect by not interrupting the meeting by clapping, calling out, and this will assist the elected members in focusing on the discussion tonight and the debate and the outcome of matters before them. Should you wish to engage with the City on any matter, please make contact with the City or your elected members. Okay, I would like to also note that the attendance by elected members may be a little bit unusual tonight, the order of the agenda items, because we have a number of elected members who are dialing in. They're on online, and we probably need to order it according to the attendance at the meeting tonight, so it might vary from time to time, so we may have to reorder things, but we'll let you know those items as they come. So we just would appreciate your patience and your understanding if the meeting doesn't follow the agenda sequence. So attendance and apologies. We have the following councillors attending electronically with my permission. Can you please confirm your attendance? Councillor Wheatland.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Edinger?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'm here.
Thank you. And Councillor Green? He's muted. He can't, he's trying to answer. Oh, here he is.
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you very much, Councillor Green. Additionally, there are no apologies for this evening. And finally, we have the following councillors on leave of absence. That's Councillor Robbins and Councillor Woodall. Item 3, declarations by members. We now move on to declarations by members. Are there any declarations by members who have not read and given due consideration to all matters contained in the business papers presented before the meeting? Neil?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Councillor Green.
Yes, I'll just point out that as I'm on approved leave of absence, however, dialing in, and so to some extent my preparation has been limited, but I'm confident that I've had a reasonable look at most material.
Thank you very much, Councillor Green. Councillor Wheatland.
Yeah, I'm in a similar situation. I'm also on an approved leave of absence, but I've chosen to dial in. Look, I've read the papers. I'm pretty sure I've got an understanding of everything, but I just wanted to make people aware of that also.
Thank you, Councillor Wheatland. Declarations by members who have received and not read the elected members' bulletin. All right, thank you. Item 4, announcements by the presiding member. So there are no deputations or written submissions that have been approved for this evening. Disclosures of interest, item 5. Can the Head of Governance please advise if there are any disclosures of interest for this evening?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you, Councillor Edinger has declared an interest in item, what's my item number? E2566, RFT 242515, refurbishment works, Victim Baths, change rooms and toilet. Councillor Edinger is declaring a financial interest and will leave the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, are there any further disclosures from elected members? If there are none, we're moving on to public question time. So I advise that 15 minutes is allocated for public question time, and each questioner will have 2 minutes to ask their question and any follow-up question. Please be respectful. So as per our local law, you'll have a maximum of 2 minutes to ask your question, and I've said that one. So if you wish to ask more than one question, and there are others waiting to ask questions, you'll need to wait until everybody else has had a chance to ask a question before you can ask another one. So I remind everyone that you must complete a public question time form prior to asking your question. So public question time, I now declare open at 6:37. There has been a number of questions that have been received without notice this evening. If we have the question asker here in the meeting or have a representative to ask the question, could you please make your way to the microphone to ask your question when called? If there is no one in the audience to ask the question and the question is not taken on notice, the question and response will be provided in the minutes, which will be available to the public on Thursday, the 17th of April. First of all, I'd like to call upon Mr. Sampson of Applecross. Please come forward and ask your question.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Peter Sampson. My question is in regard to the Morrow Town Square concept design. Some background, given that the only mention of parking in the city's key findings, and I quote, "A small amount of negative input was received from local businesses, primarily focused on current limited parking availability in the area." And my question is, why was the community not given a choice to comment on a Morrow Town Square concept design with no car park, which would reflect what the council had passed in April 2023 to be 100% public open space?
Thank you. Ms Bowman, CEO.
Thank you for your question. In accordance with section 6.8 and 6.9 of the city's local government meeting procedures local law, as these questions were received reasonably late, we will need to provide responses to this question on notice, and a response will be published in the agenda for the May 2025 ordinary meeting of council. So that will be where the response is. So thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Ms Bliss of Applecross.
I have a couple of questions. We're taking a couple of each. Is that okay?
Pardon?
We're going to split the questions between us.
That's fine. Yes, both come forward then, if you wish.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening, councillors.
Please state your name and suburb.
Sorry, Steve Douglas, Applecross. As a follow-up to the Morrow Mews issue, public open space, of course, save our space is what we're about. At the March 2025 ordinary meeting at council, council was advised to officers that parking had been included in all 3 of the Morrow Mews Town Square concept plans. This was contrary, of course, to the April 2023 council decision that it should be 100%. And apparently the reason for the parking being included was because of community feedback. So my first question is, how many local businesses or respondents indicated they wanted parking on the site, and what percentage of them was it of the total community feedback? That's my first question, Madam Mayor. Should I wait for a response to that, or should I go to the second?
Yes, if you just continue on with your
Okay.
questions, we'll give
Okay.
you an answer after.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just moving on the broader issue of public parking and who should fund it and so forth, does the city now acknowledge that further public parking, cafes and retail could be community benefits to be provided by current and future developments in this precinct, given particularly that the WA Planning Commission has a strong preference for maintaining bonus heights?
Yes, if you could please continue.
I did have another question. There are currently 35 car park bays on the existing site. We'd like to know why the concept plans appear to have more than even the existing car park bays. Thank you.
Okay, Ms Bowman, CEO.
Thank you for your questions. In accordance with the meeting procedures, local law will also need to take those questions on notice, and a response will be provided in the agenda for the May council meeting. So thank you.
Thank you.
You're going to continue with your questions?
I am, thank you. Susan
And
Fliss,
just
Applecross.
state your name and suburb again, please.
Susan Fliss, Applecross. My first question is, why does the city wish to limit the area available for much needed green space and tree canopy by allocating space for a cafe on this site when there are at least 3 cafes very close to the site, including one directly opposite in Morrow Mews, which will impact their trade? So that's one question. And the following question is, what weight does the city allocate to the high reputational risks arising from the city's failure to present a concept plan containing no car park in the current public engagement regarding Morrow Mews Town Square, and the failure to be in line with previous community petitions, as well as the CBACP review public consultation process undertaken prior to the April 2023 council resolution to convert 100% of this site to public open space, and the strong perception in the community that the city is seeking to land bank the area proposed for car parking on the current concept plans to preserve the potential for future commercial development of the proposed car park area in preference to providing or prioritising the community's most urgent value of clean and green in an area sorely lacking in parks and with diminishing tree canopy. Thank you.
Ms Bowman, CEO.
Thank you for your questions. In accordance with the meeting procedures local law, as we receive these questions with late notice, we'll have to provide the response in the agenda for the May council meeting. So thank you.
Thank you. Understood.
Are there any further questions from the gallery? If there are no further questions, I declare the question time over at 6:44 p.m. Item 7, awards and presentations. There are no awards or presentations for this evening. Item 8, applications for new leave of absence. No requests from elected members have been received for leave of absence. Are there any requests from the floor? Okay, thank you. Okay, if there are no requests from the floor for a leave of absence, I'll move on to item 9, confirmation of minutes. 9.1, ordinary meeting of the council, 18th of March. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Lee, seconded. Councillor Spanbrook, any voice to the contrary? I declare it carried. Item 9.2, ordinary meeting of the Policy and Legislative Committee, 24th of March. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? those online can also, yes, councillor Green moved and seconded. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Lee, any voice to the contrary? I declare it carried. 9.3, special meeting of the council, 1st of April. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Hong, seconded Councillor Spanbrook. Any voice to the contrary? I declare it carried. 9.4, ordinary meeting of the Governance Committee, 7th of April. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Hong, seconded. Councillor Barber, any voice to the contrary? I declare that carried. 9.5, notes of agenda briefing forum, 8th of April. Can I have a mover and seconder, please?
Madam Mayor, there is an error or an omission from the notes. I've spoken to governance about it, and I believe it can be corrected. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. So I need to have a mover and seconder of the agenda. Thank you. Councillor Lim, seconded. Councillor Ross, any voice to the contrary? I declare it carried. New business of an urgent nature, item 10. There is no new business of an urgent nature. Item 11, identification of matters for which meeting may be closed. The following items have been identified as having confidential attachments. Item E 2565 RFT 242521 remediation and reconstruction services of Majestic Boardwalk, and item E 2566 RFT 242515 refurbishment works Bicton Baths, change rooms and toilets. Should elected members wish to discuss the confidential attachments, the items will be held until the end of the meeting, and I will call for a motion to go behind closed doors. Right, petitions. No petitions have been received for discussion this evening. Item 13, adoption of recommendations en bloc. We now move on to en bloc items for this evening. The following items have been recommended to be carried en bloc. Item C25-256, review of CP 105 election caretaker policy. C25-257, annual review of policy schedule. C25-258, adoption of new council policy. CP 128, privacy policy. C25-261, investment statements for February 2025. C25-262, schedule of accounts paid for February 2025. 25/263, statements of financial activity for February 2025. And C25-264, Common Seal, April 2025, and CD 2544, First Nations Community Engagement Process. Can I have a mover and seconder for this recommendation? Councillor Ross, seconded. Councillor Barber, any voice to the contrary? I declare it carried. Now we're moving on to the reports for this evening. The first item for discussion is C25-259, local government elections. We need an absolute majority. Can I please have a mover and seconder for the officer recommendation? Councillor Lim, seconded Councillor Lee. Is there any voice to the contrary? Does anybody have a different view? If there is no voice to the contrary, I declare it carried. Next item, C25-265, superannuation for elected members. An absolute majority is required. We have an officer recommendation. Can I please have a mover and seconder? Thank you, Councillor Lee. Seconded. Councillor Ross.
Councillor Edinger's got a hand up.
Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. Councillor Edinger. Yes, I'll take you as the seconder. Or did... I think since you moved this to put it on the table, would Councillor Lee be happy if we had Councillor Edinger as the mover and you can be the seconder? Okay. Is there any...
Not on the table.
Pardon?
Oh, I don't know if it's on the table, actually. Is it?
No, it is. It's been moved and seconded, so it's on the table.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it is. You
Okay.
moved it and Councillor Lee seconded. Is
I'm
that all
happy.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, I'm happy for Councillor Lim to move it if he wants to.
No, it's all right. We've organised it now. So is there any voice to the contrary? If there is no voice to the contrary, I declare it carried. Item number E2565, RFT 242521, Remediation and Reconstruction Services of Majestic Boardwalk, absolute majority required. Can I please have a mover and seconder of the officer recommendation? Councillor Ross, seconded Councillor Lim. Is there any voice to the contrary? If there is no voice to the contrary, I declare it carried. Next item, E2566, RFT 242515, refurbishment works, Bicton Baths, change rooms and toilet. Absolute majority is required. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Barber. And seconded? Councillor Ross? Okay. Yep. Okay, Councillor Edinger has departed the meeting temporarily while we take a vote. Is there any voice to the contrary? Okay, I declare it carried. We will invite Councillor Edinger back to the meeting. Okay, moving on. Councillor Edinger is back with us again. Item 15.2, notice of motion, motion from the table, tree policy. There is no absolute majority required for the next items that we're discussing. So I need a mover to take this. Councillor Edinger has moved it. Councillor Edinger has advised that she would like to raise a motion to take the motion with notice review of tree policy from the table. Councillor Edinger, do you wish to proceed?
Yes, I do.
You do. Can I have a seconder, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Oh, thank you. Councillor Green. Is there any voice to the contrary? Any debate? Okay, if there's no voice to the contrary, oh, there is. Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think it would be appropriate to actually leave this on the table until at such time when.
Sorry, you're going to debate. So what I need to do is probably ask the mover. I need to ask the mover of the motion to open the debate so you can put your case. Okay, Councillor Edinger, please.
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor. Basically, I believe that, well, I moved the motion to lay the motion on the table initially because our last meeting was getting extremely late and we were all a bit tired. So this is why I've moved it, asked to move it off the table. I've also moved a potential amendment asking for the motion to be directed to the Policy and Legislation Committee, which we'll deal with once the vote for the motion to be removed from the table is passed. So that's how I'm hoping things will play out, and I hope that everyone will support the motion. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Green, do you wish to speak now or later?
Can I ask a procedural question? Sorry.
Yes, Councillor Wheatland.
Sorry, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just wondering about Councillor Edinger moving this, bringing it back off the table and the amendment. But that goes back to the original mover and seconder, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
So do we need to vote to get it off the table first?
Yes, that's what we're doing right now. And we're having a debate first.
Sorry.
Thank you. So Councillor Edinger has spoken. Councillor Green is the seconder. Would you like to speak now or later?
Yes, I'll speak now, Madam Mayor. Thank you. Yeah, I would like to second the motion as I originally moved it in April.
We're talking about the motion to bring the item back on the table. So that's all we're talking about.
Yes.
We're not talking about the actual item particularly.
Yeah. So I would like to voice my support for having that motion yeah, back on the table for discussion tonight, as it was, unaltered from last meeting.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Spanbrook, you wish to speak against?
I do, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think it'd be appropriate to leave this motion laying on the table, as in due time we will be discussing the tree retention policy, and I think both items can be discussed at that time. So by just leaving it there for now until the tree retention policy and all the community engagement submissions are received, which is well over 500 plus responses, and then we can actually assess them, and then we can actually then debate this or bring it back off the table and then debate it in due course. Thank you.
Now, a question to elected members. Are there any other speakers against? Councillor Ross. Okay, so I'll take a speaker for. That's taking this motion off the table. Okay, that's what we're speaking about. So is there a speaker for? All right, I'll take one more speaker against.
I'll speak for.
Pardon?
I'll speak for.
You'll speak for.
Councillor
Thank you,
Wheatland.
Councillor Wheatland.
Thank you. Look, I wholeheartedly think we should take this off the table. I'm not going to say what I was going to say actually, because, you know, this is a motion that we can debate the arguments that Councillor Spanbrook just raised about the policy. So I don't see the point in letting this really substantive, reasonable motion to lay on the table. And in my limited experience of 8 years, it's the first time I've ever seen a motion lay on the table. It could have been deferred, could have been any number of things. But anyway, so I fully support this coming back from off the table.
Thank you. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would support it coming off the table at an appropriate time. I believe that there's a number of other policies and procedures that are being debated around the tree policy, and it's premature to have this matter debated and passed at this time. So in order to give this a fair hearing, I believe it should stay on the table till these other matters have been further progressed, and then it can come out and have a reasonable opportunity to be properly debated. I don't believe it has had that opportunity, and so therefore bringing it out now is premature, and for that reason I would not support it coming off the table.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Is there another speaker against?
Madam Mayor, I have a question, if I may.
Oh, you have a question?
Yes, I agree with Councillor Wheatland in that this is a very substantial motion.
Sorry, is this a question? Are you debating or is it a question?
Am I just allowed to have a small preamble? Is that okay?
No, can you just ask the question, please?
Are we allowed to, as in, and forgive me for giving a small preamble, Madam Mayor, Councillor Wheatland has said that she has heard of deferrals not laying on the table, and I think this is a substantial motion. And I was thinking, normally when we defer, we say defer to an EMES. So
Sorry,
that we
can I just interrupt you there? This failed as a deferral. The motion failed. Okay. So the next motion was to lay it on the table. So that's how it ended up getting laid on the table.
Okay, I was not aware of that because I was away for that, on leave of absence for that motion. Okay, so we can't defer it. Are we allowed to, if it's laying on the table, ask for it to be taken to an EMES for further explanation by city officers?
Well, no, we can't at this point. It's either on the table or off the table. That's what the vote would be indicating, whether we're going to lift it off the table or it stays on the table. It can be discussed at an EMIS regardless of that. We can have any topic we like at an EMIS, and this can be one of them at any time, and has been for about two EMIS meetings. So to answer your question, yes, it can, without even having to mention it, but we're not debating that now. You can request that. We are debating whether this comes off the table or remains on the table. So I'm going to take it that there's no further speakers against and that we need to wrap the debate up. So I'm looking at Councillor Edinger to do that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think we need to get it on the table. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, so I'm taking that to the vote now. Can we please have the vote come up? And green is for taking the item off the table, that's the tree policy, off the table, or red for leaving it on the table. Could the online councillors please let us know your vote? Councillor Green. Green or red? Yes
Thanks,
or no?
Madam Mayor. I vote to take the motion off the table for discussion tonight.
Thank you. That's a yes. Councillor Whitland.
That's a big green for me, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Edinger.
I support taking it off the table.
Thank you. That item is carried 7-3, so the motion is on the table. Now, the motion with notice, tree policy motion, was moved by Councillor Green and seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald at the March meeting, the March ordinary meeting of Council, and at the time there was no debate that occurred. So we've only had a mover and seconder, and then a deferrer was moved and failed, and laying on the table was then passed. So I advise Councillor Edinger has proposed an amendment to this item. Before we proceed to the amendment, Councillor Green, would you like to introduce your motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Essentially, I'm hoping the elected members have read the reasons for the motion. I think that they're reasonably self-explanatory for why I wanted to move this motion. I think some things I'd point out is that tree canopy is certainly a hot topic at the moment. It was a request from the special electors meeting to address tree canopy in some respect. I think it's important for us to be doing something sooner rather than later in that regard. I acknowledge that some of the aspects of what the correct request was in the motion from the special electors meeting did involve private land, and that there is already a process underway to address that. But in the meantime, I think it's important that we are doing all that we can on city-owned land to increase the tree canopy, and that we are falling behind in terms of our targets for percentage of tree canopy, and therefore anything that we can do to move towards that target is important to do. And before we start having a conversation with residents or ratepayers about their privately owned land and trees on their privately owned land, I think we would not be in a strong position to be, shall we say, dictating to people on their private land if we are not doing everything we possibly can on city-owned land. And therefore, I think this is a good first step for us to move in that direction. Having said that, people, I don't think these are one and the same. People can have a view about private trees on privately owned land, and they can have a view about trees on street verges and other areas of city-owned land, and they could well be different. And one certainly doesn't take away from the other either. It's not an excuse not to do anything on private land. Certainly not. Certainly not in my view. So I just think this is a very important step to move towards this. City officers have indicated in the past that there are frustrations with trying to plant trees on street verges in particular, and I think there needs to be some tighter enforcement around that to ensure that that these trees remain in place and that our canopy does grow. The sooner we get these trees in the ground, the sooner we're going to have the benefit of an increasing tree canopy from trees as they grow. So I just encourage elected members to just refer to the reasons of the motion. I also would point out that there's nothing unusual about putting a motion together and have it go to an EMIS for a report. So I don't see that there's anything particularly out of the ordinary with this this motion. It could be potentially contentious for some people, certainly, but in terms of the process, I think it's fine to go ahead as it is. I don't believe it needs amendment. Yeah, I urge you all to vote for this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Edinger, would you like to proceed with your amendment?
Yes, I would, Madam Mayor.
Okay, so can I have a seconder, please, for your amendment? Does Councillor Edinger have a seconder for her amendment? Councillor Spanbrook. Thank you. Councillor Edinger, will you speak to your amendment, please?
Excuse me, Madam Mayor. I just want to check, prior to Councillor Edinger speaking on it, is it appropriate now for me to suggest if she would consider another point to it, or do I wait till after it?
I think we give her an opportunity to make an opening statement, and then you can raise that. You are the seconder.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Councillor Edinger.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As a council, we have actually voted and now have in place a policy and legislation committee, of which Councillor Green is the presiding member. And so as a council, we should be following due process, which is that changes to policy go to the policy and legislation committee prior to be presented to council. And that way we have a pathway which enables policies to be reviewed by the committee, who can then make their recommendations, and then they can go to an EMS and then come to council. In this instance, Councillor Green, while his ideas have merit, he is trying to force a policy change pretty much on the run, which is something that we have been discussing for many years, that we should not do policy on the run. We should look at our policies in a considered fashion, and now we have a due process that can be followed. And this is why I am recommending my amendment, which is simply to move the piece of legislation, the piece of the motion, to the policy and legislation committee process, and then eventually bring it back to council, and possibly towards the end of the year, when it will dovetail with work that's already happening in relation to trees in our city. So that's why I'm asking people to support this amendment. Thank you.
Councillor Spanbrook, you're the seconder. You suggest that you might want to change. Thank you.
I'd like to speak first, if I may.
You're welcome to speak
on this.
Thank you.
And then hopefully Councillor Edinger will take some suggestions into consideration. I'd just like all councillors just to be aware of the issues with forcing people to have verge trees, and But in saying that, just bear with me because I'm going somewhere with it. So I just want to just point out a few things. That first of all, this is what the issues that trees can cause: potential conflicts with property rights. People believe that it infringes on their right to use their own property, even though it's a verge, but people still see it as their own because they tend to look after it as it is their own. Maintenance issues, as in the clean-up. Trees impact infrastructure, walls, house foundations, reticulation, the potential value of property, uncontrolled tree growth, shade impacting solar panels. And these issues that I'm talking about now, they're not just or something, they're people that I've actually spoken to, real people, within who have got these issues. So they're just a few. So in saying that, in the actual Councillor Edinger's amendment, that she is suggesting that it does go to the Policy and Legislation Committee, which is a good thing. It shouldn't be actually, just something that is done on the run, as she suggested that Councillor Green did. However, I would like for Councillor Edinger to consider putting in there that with regard to the valid reasons, I think they all need to be nutted out by everyone, not just by a very few in the Policy and Legislation Committee. I think that will involve a whole elected member discussion. And so therefore, if Councillor Edinger will consider putting in a 0.5, that to once it's gone to the Policy and Legislation Committee, they've actually done their bit, then it's to come to an EMIS for all elected members then to have further discussion on it and input, and then for it to go to Council for the consideration. However, as Councillor Edinger did suggest, to be in December 2025. So this ought to take place in December 25. So it should be in line then with the tree retention policy. So that way then we're not doing one and then another, whereas forcing people to have verge trees can be very decisive, very divisive, and it can cause a lot of conflict. And I'll just say, let you know what one officer, I did speak to an officer about it, and I did say to that officer, I said, by forcing people to have verge trees, are you in support of this? And that officer said, yes, I am. Quite adamant. And I said, even if there are issues with that the tree could be damaged or, well, they'll be fine. I said, but if you can't determine what the cause of that damage is, what will you do then? We'll replace it. I said, so you'll just keep replacing the tree over and over again. I said, but you've only got a certain budget. We'll increase it. So there's another issue in itself. So I just need everyone to be aware of the feedback that I did get from an officer when I asked those questions. So just take that all into consideration. Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
I think at this point we're just going to get some steps, because you've talked about taking this item to an EMIS, we're just going to get some procedural steps just so everybody's clear on it. Head of Governance, Ms Newman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. So the role of the Policy and Legislation Committee is to make a recommendation to the Council on changes to policy. So it would come back to a Council meeting. I would suggest that if elected members want to have a discussion prior to that, they can either request that it go to an EMES before it goes to the Policy and Legislation Committee, so the committee can then consider any feedback, or alternatively, elected members are all able to attend those committee meetings as well and participate in the discussion on those matters. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Spanbrook, do you have a question?
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So in saying from what Ms Newman just advised, then perhaps, well, it can't really, it's best it doesn't go to the Policy and Legislation Committee then. It goes back to an EMIS. So that way then there can be further discussion with regard to the reasons why people can't have trees. And even when I'm talking about reasons, I'm not saying where someone may be completely incapacitated to look after the tree, or I'm talking about some real reasons that people just don't want trees, that they may live live very close to the actual verge, their property.
Point of order.
Okay, I think you're debating again, Councillor Spanbrook.
Point of order.
Point of order. Is this Councillor Wheatland?
Yeah, I just wondered the relevance of Councillor Spanbrook. Are we going to continue to debate whether or not it should go to an EMES or a policy committee, or are we just going to continue on the amendment?
Thank
We're
you.
going to continue on with the
It's very
amendment.
confusing.
It does
Yeah.
mean, we're just getting some clarity from the officers about it, that there can be, can I ask this question? Can there be somewhere in this item that we can refer it to an EMIS prior to this legislative committee? Ms.
Madam
Newman?
Mayor, could,
If you could just let Ms. Newman answer.
sure, I just thought, I just thought Councillor Edinger maybe wish to be conferred with regard to this.
Well, we need to get clarity around the process first.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If it's with respect to getting council or elected member feedback on the valid reasons, I would suggest that we could do that as part of the process prior to it going to the Policy and Legislation Committee, and we could do that through a various number of ways. We could provide the information to elected members on the portal and gather feedback that way, or we could have it as an item on an EMIS prior to the next committee for elected members to provide that feedback.
So I gather that would mean we don't have to make any adjustments to this amendment. No, it doesn't appear to be necessary to make any changes. The officers can do this administratively.
Madam Mayor, then.
Do you have another
Should there
question?
be a date in there to say when it's to be returned to council? Can there be a 0.5?
It is in actually the last line of the introduction, and a report be provided to the August 2025 OMC. I think that's fairly clear.
Can that then change to December 2025 and it'll allow sufficient time?
Well, that's really up to the council if they want to make an amendment.
So
But at the moment, that's how it reads.
well, that's what I was just wanting to find out from Councillor Edinger. Thank you.
Councillor Edinger, I understand Councillor Spanbrook would like to change the date to December 2025. The report be provided to the December 2025 OMC. Is that something you would agree to?
No, but I'm happy with the city being able to administratively deal with the EMS thing. So I think my amendment should stand as it is.
Okay, so then there needs to be an amendment formally moved.
Just one point there.
Councillor
With
Spanbrook.
August 2025, Madam Mayor, because it is council elections this year, will that be a part of the caretaker period?
Ms Bowman, CEO.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Spanbrook. No, it's not. Caretaker period will start from the September council meeting. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now, so we're moving on to speakers against. Is there a speaker against? Oh, Councillor Wheatland, are you speaking against?
Yes, yep, I want to speak
Thank you.
against, and only because, look, I understand the intent of this amendment, and based on all the information and all the deputations and all the letters that we get consistently from, Melville Climate Action Network, from, we just heard tonight we had Save Our Spaces, talking about tree canopy and the lack of tree canopy across the city. And I think a delay in this certainly is alarming for me, because there's a little level of hypocrisy in it. Apologies, Councillor Edinger, nothing personal, but tree canopy is tree canopy, and with the rise of the polyphagous shot-hole borer breathing down our neck, and the removal of trees to counteract this invasive pest, I think we need to not delay it, even just by a month, and certainly not till December. I'm quite happy to support the original motion as intended, so that's why I will be opposing this amendment. I've got no issue with it going to the policy committee or to an EMES. No issue at all whatsoever. It's just that delay by a month or 2 months.
There is no amendment on the table suggesting the December 25 OMC is the
Yes,
date.
sorry.
There is no change. There is no amendment. So the motion is Councillor Edinger's motion, which is an amendment to
Yes.
the officers. All right.
Yes, and I think the date change is different, is it not?
Which date?
So Councillor Green wanted a report for June.
Oh, June.
And Councillor Edinger oh God, now I've got, where is it? It has wanted it for August. Is that correct, Councillor Ettinger?
Oh, look, you're quite right. Report for the June 2025 is in Councillor
Thank you.
Green's motion, and Councillor Edinger is suggesting August 2025. There is a legislative policy and legislation committee meeting at the end of May, which would have allowed Councillor Green's motion to occur. So we are actually considering the amendment at the moment. So you've spoken against just the date particularly. Okay, thank you. Are there any other speakers against? Right, if there's no other speaker...
For Madam...
Yes, I
for,
understand that.
we have some-
But if I don't have another speaker against, I'm going to ask, is there another speaker against? Oh, Councillor Green, are you against the amendment? Do you want to speak? Because I need a speaker for before you speak. I just need to assess how many are going to speak. So you're going to speak against?
Yes, I would like to speak against.
Right, okay, I need a speaker for. Is there a speaker for? Councillor Barber.
Yes, I'm speaking for the amendment. As I mentioned earlier, to an EMS. Madam Mayor, you said it has come to an EMS, but even Councillor Green, I think, would agree that it's come at the death knock and we haven't really discussed it. And I think this is a substantial issue. And the more time we get to discuss this, all the councillors, before it goes to the Policy and Legislation Committee, the better.
Okay, thank you. We have Councillor Green speaking against.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to point out that it's certainly my understanding that there's still an opportunity for for the original motion to be put to the Policy Committee. There's still an opportunity for an EMIS discussion. As elected members all know, I've circulated an email supporting the idea that we do discuss it at an EMIS. I believe that to some extent the discussions that have been attempted to be had at EMISs that have been late in the night at those EMISs have been somewhat hamstrung by the fact that the motion was on the table, and so it was difficult for an open discussion because we didn't really know what we were dealing with at that time. The motion's now off the table, and I just believe all of the above can be addressed with the original motion. It can be the officer recommendation can refer it to the policy committee if they need to. We can have a discussion about valid reasons at an EMIS. The original motion itself addresses some of Councillor Spanbrook's concerns about challenges to tree removal and areas where we can perhaps tighten up on enforcement and things like that to avoid the repetitive plantings in certain locations. So I think everything is still achievable with the original motion. I would agree with Councillor Wheatland that time is of the essence. I think we need to firstly be seen to address the concerns raised in the special electors meeting for the tree canopy, but also we just need to get some trees in the ground and start doing what we need to as a council, as a city, to maximise tree canopy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Are there any other speakers against? If there's not, Councillor Hong, is that a question or what would that be? A question?
Is there a definite opportunity for us to have this item for discussion at the EMS and Policy Committee before June OMC? Thank you.
Bowman, CEO.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Hong. We could definitely fit it into an EMES discussion before the June council meeting, but there isn't a policy and legislation committee meeting, sorry? Yeah, the one at the end of May, it would be difficult for officers to get a report to the policy committee. So to go firstly to an EMES and then have a report ready to go to the policy and legislation committee, I don't believe that would be feasible to be able to get it to the May policy committee. So thank you.
Okay, so I take it there's no further speak. There is Councillor
Question,
Wheatland.
sorry. Just to follow on from that really good question from Councillor Hung. So when, with that in mind, could we call a special meeting of this policy committee meeting, or when would the officers see the earliest opportunity for this to be heard, to come back? Please.
Just give us a moment to find out.
Madam Mayor, can I ask you a question?
CEO, somebody just took me off. Okay, Ms Bowman, CEO, will add some clarity.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Wheatland. It is possible to call a special meeting of the Policy and Legislation Committee. However, we would be struggling to get to a discussion at an EMES and then have sufficient time before the June council meeting to also have a special Policy and Legislation Committee meeting. It would be a challenge for the city to be able to meet that timeline. It would probably be more feasible for a report to come back to the July council meeting to ensure we've got sufficient time to go to an EMES and then potentially have a special policy committee meeting and then get to the July council meeting would be more achievable. Thank you.
Okay, so I hope that's added some clarity.
Madam Mayor, just a question, if I may.
Councillor Spanbrook.
Thank you. I'm just a bit confused why we're discussing June when Councillor Edinger's amendment is actually for August. So there'll be sufficient
We're not really
time then.
discussing it. There are questions raised about the potential ability to actually achieve that in a short time frame. The officer's saying it's not easy to do. July is a more feasible month if there is a wish to change dates, if there's a movement to adjust the dates.
Oh, okay, but even though it's at the moment we're discussing Councillor Edinger's amendment, which is August?
Which we are. But
Yes.
They're looking for clarity around the date because it's going to help them decide what to
Sure.
vote.
Okay.
So that's why we're entertaining those questions.
Thank you.
Councillor Green. We can't hear you, Councillor Green. You're muted.
My apologies. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just had a question about the policy committee, perhaps for governance or for the CEO, just regarding the May meeting. Is there any reason why we can't have it as an agenda item, raised as an agenda item now or in the coming days for the May policy committee meeting? Or does it have to be an instruction from council to be discussed at a policy meeting?
We have an amendment on the table suggesting that it goes to the Policy and Legislative Committee. That is the question before us. In fact, the amendment before us.
Yes. but
Ms
it's-
Newman will add a bit more information.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. Councillor Green, I believe what you're asking is whether or not we could raise it on the agenda for the May Policy and Legislation Committee. Whilst that is possible, if elected members wanted to have some input at an EMES, we have very limited EMESs between now and the Policy and Legislations Committee's next scheduled meeting. So that's the reason we are suggesting, if there is some urgency around this matter, that we would probably need to call either a special meeting of the Policy and Legislation Committee or to postpone the one that is currently scheduled for the end of May, in order to collect the feedback from elected members and then prepare a report for the Policy and Legislation Committee, which would then be considered by the council.
So it appears that changing the date is to an earlier date becomes challenging. That's what I think we're hearing. So now we have the amendment before us. I'm going to go back to the mover of that amendment, Councillor Edinger, to wrap up the debate.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As the presiding member of the Governance Committee, I'm acutely aware that we should be following proper procedure and proper process. And one of those is to not rush our policy. And if we don't give it the time that it needs, and it's only a couple more months, it's not till December as has been suggested, then it gives us all time to consider this quite significant change to policy. I agree we need as many trees on verges as can be squeezed in, but the majority of our tree canopy loss is unfortunately off private land, and that is not going to change in the near future. So whilst this policy is, as I said before, has merit, I think rushing it will lead to potentially gaps or it not being as complete as it could, particularly if we're looking at valid reasons. We need to really, that is the key thing that probably needs to be interrogated by council, and just the couple of extra months will help us do that to the greatest extent that we can. So I encourage everyone to vote for my amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Edinger. We're now going to vote on Councillor Edinger's amendment. Green is supporting the amendment. It is a yes, and red is a no for the amendment. And I need to have the vote of the councillors who have called in, who are online. So, Councillor Green, what would your vote be?
I vote no, Madam Mayor.
Pardon? Did you say?
Vote no.
You don't know?
No, I vote no.
Oh, you vote no. Okay. Thank you. Councillor Wheatland?
No.
No. And Councillor Edinger?
I vote for the amendment.
Yes. Thank you. The amendment is carried 8-2. Thank you very much. We're now moving to the substantive motion.
I'm happy to speak for Thomas, or not for Thomas. Thomas was the seconder of this motion, I think. And is he in the room?
No, he's not, but yes, you can speak.
As this,
Are you
not the
speaking? No,
seconder.
you're just speaking as a councillor. So are you speaking for or against?
No, I'll speak for, so you probably need someone against first, don't you?
No, we
No?
can take you.
I have a question, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Edinger.
Given Councillor Fitzgerald is not at the meeting, does there need to be a replacement seconder? Thank you.
I understand no. That is correct. There is no need to replace him. So I'm just looking for any speaker. Is there anybody against?
Madam Mayor,
Councillor Spanbrook, you want to speak against?
can you please just describe what the motion will look like if this motion were to be adopted, as well as Councillor Edinger's? Is it just all integrated as one? So what exactly, or if it's supported, so if
It's on the screen, so you can get an understanding of what, as amended. Is that the one?
Oh, it's already been changed, has it, with the amendment? Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Spanbrook, what you're looking at on the screen is the substantive motion now as amended. Did you wish to speak against it?
No, thank you.
No.
I thought it was just the original substantive motion. Thank you.
No. Okay, well, Councillor Whitland, would you like to speak?
Is there any speakers against?
No, there's no speaker against.
Look, I'll just make a couple of points really quickly. Is that all right?
Yeah,
Madam Mayor?
just make a couple of quick points and then
Really
we'll wrap
quickly.
up the debate.
Isn't it unanimous
Look,
then?
I'm very sorry.
Isn't it
People are,
unanimous? No?
we are allowed to have speakers. This is an important matter and it would be good to wrap it up. Councillor Wheatland expressed an interest in speaking, so we'll just take one speaker, wrap up the debate with Councillor Green. Thank you.
Thank you. And look, just 3 solid points. The community has been very loud and clear over tree protection. People are frustrated by tree canopy loss and they want stronger protections. And I think that this review that Councillor Green is asking for responds to those concerns, and we're making sure that our policies actually reflect what the community wants, a greener, more sustainable city. Reviewing the tree removal challenge and damage to trees, it's about tightening loopholes and ensures that there are actual consequences if people just unnecessarily remove trees or damage trees, not if it's an unnecessary removal. And if we don't strengthen them, we'll keep losing trees without people being accountable for it. And embedding that key tree protections in the thoroughfares local law, it means it ensures better compliance and stronger penalties. And so if we as a council and a city are serious about protecting our urban canopy, we need these policies to be able to allow us to do that. And I guess essentially this is all about listening to the community, protecting our trees as well, and making sure our children and future generations of residents at the City of Melville have a greener future.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Wheatland. Councillor Green, can you wrap up the debate, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I respect the decision of the council so far to include the referral to the Policy and Legislation Committee. I believe that that we now have we now have all bases covered. Really, one thing I would I believed we had the potential to do that anyway, but I certainly recognise now that we have all bases covered in terms of discussion with relevant committees and elected members as a whole. I would point out to elected members as well that there is a pretty big distinction between this motion and the processes that we're looking at already for trees on private land. Trees on private land are essentially a planning issue, where this is a department of Environment and Infrastructure Department. So in that regard, they're quite separate. There is some overlap, and where both need to be looked at in conjunction. There is still the opportunity for city officers to recommend that that certain decisions are perhaps deferred and looked at the conclusion of the other process with regards to trees on private land. But I think it's important that we get this in the system now and get things moving with this for reasons I've already mentioned. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. We're now taking this to the vote. So all those in favour of the substantive motion as amended, green or yes, and anybody against, red or no. Going to the elected members online, Councillor Green, what is your vote? Yes or no?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Wheatland?
Yes.
And Councillor Edinger?
Yes.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I probably should have asked this question before. It sounds like we're voting on this policy now, but I thought we were just voting on a report.
We're voting. We're just going to complete the vote, please.
It is a report,
Just
I'm
a
sure,
report?
isn't it? Madam Mayor?
It's being referred to the, as it says in the first line, it's being referred to the Policy and Legislative Committee for review, and a report will be provided to the August 2025 OMC. So that's what it says in the first few lines.
Just the way Councillor Green and Councillor Wetton spoke, it sounded like we were actually voting on the change
No,
of
we're
policy.
voting on the substantive motion as amended. Councillor
if I could-
Barber, could you please give us your vote, because you've missed the vote? Yes. Yes. Thank you. That is carried 9-1. Now, we've finished that item. And we're going on to the next item, which is 15.1, Notice of Motion, Progress WAPC Structure Plan Reviews. The motion was moved by Councillor Ross and seconded by Councillor Edinger at the March 2025 ordinary meeting of Council. At the time of deferral, no debate had occurred. Councillor Ross, would you like to introduce your motion, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do. To start with, I wish to thank the officers for their advice and for obtaining clarification from the WAPC. The specific clarification that was requested from the WAPC was effectively whether a scheme amendment or review could be conducted concurrently and or linked to preparation of a structure plan. In response, the WAPC did not answer that very specific question. Instead, the WAPC said, if while pursuing these priorities, the priorities being pursuing the structure plan priorities, the city has found that key landowners have no intention of redeveloping these centre SIC within the next 10 years, then it is reasonable that the city's priorities take this into account. So the question is, did the city pursue those priorities? And the answer is a very clear no. In an EMS briefing on 29 November 2022 on the LPS 6 review, the officer advice was that existing structure plans are operating satisfactorily and include opportunity for review and enhancement as required. In these circumstances, linking of a requirement to review structure plans to the review of LPS 6 is not required. So the answer from the WAPC said there was no mention that the two things cannot be done together at this time. And since it was the WAPC who requested that the two should be done together and have now avoided answering that question, it should be finally apparent that at least that legislative reason is really not a valid reason. It is also evident that from receipt of the WAPC letter in May 2022 to November 2022, the city had ample time to consider the WAPC recommendation and ample time to understand that the WAPC recommendation required that the review of LPS 6 be linked to the completion of the outstanding structure plans. The WAPC's additional comments in the 17 March 2025 email is in response to the city's assurances given in the 14 March email that the city understands that as part of its review of LPS 6, that it will be necessary to provide details about the city's intentions, schedule for the preparation and or review of the city's various structure plans. And the WAPC reply in reliance on the city's assurances is, in the scenario that you have outlined, this could look like the city, through the LPS 6 review, identifying and committing to revised timelines and resourcing for structure planning projects. If this was done and was reasonable, I'm confident we would support it, and I see little reason why the WAPC would need to intervene. So perhaps if the WAPC had been advised that as part of the LPS 6 review, the city's current shortfall was 6,896 new dwellings, and after modelling, the city is forecasting a shortfall of 4,299 new dwellings as at 2031. The WPC may have seen a need to urgently intervene. So what about the financial consequences of the shortfall and continued delay in meeting the targets? 6,896 new dwellings at the current average rate amount of 1,880 equates to $12,964,000 per annum into the future that is being foregone. 4,299 new dwellings at the same rate equates to over 8 million per annum into the future. Compare that with the cost of a structure plan of a one-off approximately $400,000 per plan, which by the way, have, except for one, all been prepared by external consultants. So the lack of resources reason also has no validity. The city's fixed costs, when spread across a greater number of ratepayers, means a reduced amount payable by each ratepayer. On the corner of South Street and Murdoch Drive is an area of approximately 3,700 square meters of vacant land, zoned R20 and owned by the city of Melville. The land has been vacant since that area was developed more than 30 years ago and was apparently vested in the city by the developer to be used for a drainage sump if necessary. Madam Mayor, may I ask for another 2 minutes, please?
Yes, councillor, 2 minutes.
Thank you. There does not appear to be any evidence that the drainage sump is required or that the land cannot be used for development. The current value of the land is between $2 and $3 million. The lot area, if rezoned, would provide for at least 300 new dwellings with an average rates yield of $564,000 per annum. In this scenario, the city gets an upfront yield of $3 million, plus after construction, a minimum of $564,000 per annum into the future. A developer who purchased the site for $3 million and develops 300 new dwellings on it has an average land cost of $10,000 per dwelling. That is extremely cheap and would provide enable the provision of affordable housing. Now, if someone said they could build a luxury car that could run on water and cost the same as a bicycle, everyone would be interested, but no one would invest until they were able to examine the plans in detail and be confident of the feasibility. Until the city prepares these plans, these structure plans, saying that developers have no interest is placing the cart in front of the horse. Good plans will draw developers' interest. No plans means no interest. Lastly, there was a question at the ABF about blanket zoning. I wish to clarify that the blanket zoning has been done in the city's modelling. It is not my recommendation, and I adjusted the modelling in the example I used. Thank you. I ask that you vote in favour of this
Thank
motion.
you, Councillor Ross. Councillor Edinger, as the seconder, do you wish to speak now or later?
I'll reserve my right, thank you.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against? Oh, I must mention that Councillor Fitzgerald has joined the meeting. Okay, speaker against, Councillor Green.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just believe this topic has it's essentially been done to death, and I don't think that this motion is necessary. I think we have addressed the community concern about progressing precinct plans through previous motions carried. I just think that I think it's widely accepted that that the objective of LPS 6 review is the LPS 6 in itself is not designed to focus on areas that fall under precinct plans and activity centre plans. It was designed to capture other areas in between. It's understandable that the community wasn't aware of this, perhaps at the annual general meeting of electors, but since then it has been addressed. We've received support from the community from previous decisions made. We've had acknowledgement that looking at Murdoch and Bull Creek, for example, is being progressed. It is being done in parallel to the LPS 6 process. So I just think that, frankly, this motion really just puts a spanner in the works in terms of what has been agreed upon and achieved so far through the LPS 6 review process. Thank you.
Thank you. A speaker 4, please. Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I spent 4 hours at the DAP panel today fighting for our residents to to support the officer's recommendation for to refuse a development in the Melville City Centre Activity Centre plan. Unfortunately, we got chopped up by the DAP members because our Melville City Centre structure plan was 10 years old, and they found holes in it and they disregarded it and called it just a due regard document. They were the 4 stories that is mentioned in our Melville City Centre structure plan was poo-hooed because that was old. It wasn't up to date with Design Codes Volume 2. And it really hit home to me how easy it is for developers and now the DAP to override our outdated policies and structure plans. And so I really believe, especially after my experience today, that we need to tighten up our planning policies and all our structure plans as soon as possible. And we should be providing resources to the planning department to do this. And so I fully support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Barber. A speaker against, is that Councillor Fitzgerald?
Yes. Apologies,
Thank you.
Mayor. I've got some challenges with my camera, but if you give me a moment, there we are. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for your indulgence, and apologies for my delay this evening. I am very saddened to hear Councillor Barber's report of the outcome of JDAP today. However, no one will be surprised by that outcome. And therein, I think, lies the rub. When our structure plans are old, the JDAP ignores them. When our structure plans are new, the JDAP ignores them. When our structure plans are very clear about a 15-storey height limit, the JDAP ignores them. When we present them a picture that says perhaps we oughtn't to have a childcare centre where we have had 2 cars run into the property, JDAP ignores us. This is forever the case, and this is what we are going to be fighting against, I suspect, so long as JDAP consists in its current form. I think while it is laudable that we try and address by updating our structure plans those difficulties, we are perhaps kidding ourselves if we think that even the best and most rock-solid structure plans in the world, past the day before a matter goes before JDAP, will have a significant influence on the way in which that body makes its determinations. That is unfortunate, but it is just the reality that we are facing. Like Councillor Green, I think the substance of this motion serves to do little other than confuse the community about what it is that we are undertaking with the LPS 6 review, where the other associated documents will be looked at and will be dealt with. And it seems to me that there has been a great deal of confusion in the minds of some members of the public about the idea that there is this untapped reserve of potential housing that can happen in Bull Creek and surrounds, and that somehow that will mean upcoding in other areas does not need to happen. And to the extent that motions like this continue to keep some members of the community confused about the nature of the process that we are undertaking, I think that that is an unfortunate outcome and it is one to be avoided. As Councillor Green quite rightly pointed out, we have been very clear with the community. Our latest motion on this issue was very clear. It was very well received by the community. I worry that this is going to confuse matters at a time at which confusion is least helpful. And I would urge councillors to acknowledge that we are already doing this work in this area, that there is a program to do work in this area, that continuing development will occur in these areas, but we want to make sure that we are clear with the community about what we're doing and the way in which we're doing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a speaker for? I wish to speak against this particular item, and then I'll go to Councillor Edinger and Councillor Ross to wrap up debates. Thank you. Now, there seems to be an idea, I'm going back to the motion before us, there seems to be an idea that structure plans will absorb the requirements for development uplift in our city, and therefore we would not have to upcode any suburbs in the LPS 6 scheme review. However, this thinking is erroneous. The WAPC have made it quite clear that while they think it's important to progress structure plans, they also want to see increased coding in residential areas affected by the LPS scheme review, and that is all areas outside structure plans. Since we've begun the review, I understand we cannot halt it. That's the LPS 6 review. It must progress to completion. The WAPC has made it clear to officers that the structure plans are welcome with the residential uplift. However, they are not taken into consideration in our deliberations on LPS 6. The WAPC just sees structure plans as a bonus on top of LPS 6 rezoning. The WAPC written request that Councillor Ross refers to in his motion is 3 years old. It refers to the outstanding structure plans at Petra Street and at Bull Creek District Centre. The officers have investigated the interest from landowners in these two areas and determined there was no interest in any structure plan at this point. And if the officers go ahead with preparing these structure plans, they will waste officer time, community resources to create a plan that will go out of date by the time any landowners become interested. We also have to take note of the current written information from the WAPC 17th of March 2025 expressing support for the officers progressing the current structure plans as well as the upcoding in the LPS 6. They are aware that if there is no landowner interest in a structure plan, there is no need to waste limited council resources in developing them. Now, I'd like to mention which structure plans we have already currently on the go. The Canning Bridge Activity Centre Plan, Burragoon Structure Plan, Risley Structure Plan, Cardinia Activity Centre Plan, Melville District Activity Centre Plan, Wellergy Structure Plan, and now we have set aside $15,000 in the next budget for Murdoch and Bull Creek Railway Station Precinct Plan. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 structure plans are already in progress. Can I tell you the cost, briefly, of how much Councillor Ross is suggesting we spend? Now, here are a few figures. To prepare a report is $20,000 and officer time. We are stretched with our officers at the moment. We don't have a full complement of planning officers. In order to deliver the 2 structure plans, Petra Street and Bull Creek Shopping Centre, consultancy fees to complete 2 outstanding structure plans which nobody needs or wants, is estimated at $500,000. $250,000 each.
Madam Mayor, can I just call I don't know if I've ever done this before, a point of order.
Councillor, unless it's a point of order, I will continue.
I'm saying that.
Is this a point of order?
Is this, yes, a point of order, because I think you're actually raising these amounts. Has there been any substantial figures that have actually been provided? Because you're talking...
Yes, they have been provided by the officers.
To all of us?
To me, because I asked today.
Or shouldn't that have been shared with all elected members?
We can share it with all elected members.
So you're actually sort of leaving us a little bit in the dark here with the information that you're sharing.
I'm giving you the information now, councillor. I think you're just interrupting my debate. So I'm going to just finish off now.
So this is not a point of order?
Excuse me, councillor, can I finish debating? An estimated $500,000 it will cost. $250,000 for Petra Street, $250,000 for Bull Creek Shopping Centre, plus $60,000 salaries to cover a 0.5 FTE to manage the projects. Now, I'm just telling you the cost implications of Councillor Ross's motion. And we have an updated advice from the WAPC in which they have identified that we do not have to progress the previously stated structure plan since we are already dealing with other structure plans across the city. We do not have to waste limited officer time and community resources to fund an unnecessary report to council about two unwanted structure plans.
I'm sorry about this, but I feel like you're lecturing us. I feel like you are actually lecturing us. You don't need to lecture us, please.
Councillor, I'm debating and you're interrupting me. I respect you when you debate. Please respect me.
I feel like you are lecturing us.
Councillor, please respect me and my debate. We do not have to waste limited officer time and community resources to fund an unnecessary report to council about two unwanted structure plans when we already have 7 being progressed. Dwelling uplift in structure plans will not remove the need for upcoding in the LPS 6. The WAPC wants dwelling uplift in both. Thank you. All right. Councillor Edinger, do you wish to speak now?
Can I've got a question, Madam Mayor? The letter you just read out. Oh,
you have a question, Councillor
yes, the letter you just read out from the WAPC. When did you receive that, and have the elected members got a copy?
Yes, it's on the portal. I got it from the portal. When was it put on the portal, please? Ms Bowman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The recent letter was put on the portal on Friday in the elected member distribution.
Thank you, Councillor Edinger. Oh, is that a question? Councillor Ross.
That document you referred to from the WAPC, is that the one dated the 17th of March?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Edinger. It's the 17th of March 2025. That's a short time ago. Thank you. Councillor Edinger.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to reflect on a few statistics that or facts that you presented. In terms of the structure plans that are actually being dealt with at the moment, it's the Canning Bridge Activity Centre Plan and the Melville City Centre Structure Plan, which I believe is becoming the Burragoon Precinct Plan. Other plans are in place that we're not spending money other than overseeing them. So I'm a bit amazed that you're inferring that we are spending money on all these structure plans. I believe that if we don't build it, then they won't come. We need infill. We don't necessarily need rezoning. We do need rezoning, but we need rezoning on an equitable basis. And this is what I feel is the problem. The rezoning is not equitable at the moment. Areas that are unsuitable for rezoning, such as Ardros or East Wireless as it's being referred to, which is a ridiculous way to refer to it because it's called Ardros, is being looked at for rezoning. Canning Highway, which we've been advised by the people who prepared the Canning Bridge Activity Centre plan, so our consultants, that advise that Canning Bridge will be at full capacity soon, is being, all along Canning Highway is being slated for rezoning, which is just mystifying. And as is the Ardros rezoning, there are other areas within our city, potentially in Bull Creek, in Murdoch, in Bateman, in East Burgoon, that in Leeming, that could all be identified for rezoning in an equitable fashion if these structure plans are done. If we don't do them, we will never know, and we will continue to fall behind on our government mandated infill targets and on our provision of moderately costed housing. Currently, all the rezoning along Canning Highway will just produce unaffordable housing. The rezoning in Ardros will produce unaffordable housing. If we rezone near Murdoch, around Bull Creek, that gives us the opportunity to provide people who want to live in Melville with affordable housing near transport hubs, which is a government mandate, a federal government mandated action that we should be taking as a local government. It's for this reason that I ask you to support Councillor Ross's motion. Thank you.
Councillor Ross, can you wrap up the debate, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to address the comments that you made in relation to how much Councillor Ross's motion is going to cost the city. And I'd like to rebut that in terms of the calculations I put forward, which is how much the failure to do these structure plans and meet the targets will cost the city. And that is $12,964,000 per annum into the future, for a cost, in my estimation, of $400,000 per plan. That's basically double what you've put in, but it's $12,964,000 in additional rates that is being foregone. That is what the community is losing because you don't want to do these structure plans. So in terms of the comments about the WAPC's email, I have it here, and whilst this email was written on the 17th of March 2025, it also refers to a Friday email sent by the city, but there's no copy of the Friday email sent by the city that's been circulated. The one that's been circulated is the one sent on the 14th of March from Ben Ashwood. But whilst that's here, he refers to an earlier email in this document. Having said that, the WAPC's email is very clear on saying, if while pursuing these priorities, the city has found key landholders that are not interested, if while pursuing these priorities, plain English tells me that that the city was expected or was believed to have pursued the structure plan priorities. Now, it's quite clear that the WAPC is not aware that the city did not do that. And this motion seeks to rectify that omission and without misleading the WAPC. Now, we have two speakers who said the motion is not necessary. These are the same two individuals who, after 6 months of a motion being brought the same motion to council as their motion. And now they say that because they brought that motion in, these further structure plans are not necessary. Well, these are the outstanding structure plans that the WAPC asked to be prepared, and the city has continually ignored that. Confusing the community. Well, I think it's the community are well aware of what's being done at the moment and who are obviously confused in knocking back a motion in September and then bringing that same motion in February of the following year. So if anyone is confused, I sort of leave it to you to decide who is actually confused around us. This motion is in support of what the WAPC want. The WAPC have been given information that is at the very least ambiguous. And I am concerned. In their email, they say, I see little reason at the moment why the WAPC would need to intervene. But there's a clear message in that. The WAPC can and will intervene if the city doesn't meet its targets. And what the city's modelling has done very clearly says there will be a shortfall of 4,299 as at 2031. And there still is a further 9,000 odd that needs to be provided by 2051. So that shortfall is going to continue on if nothing is done. This is the time to take action. This is the opportunity to show everyone that despite personal animosities and personal views, that we're working together in the best interests of the community. The community have stood there and asked for a change in the way the city is progressing LPS 6 review. This will assist in that change. And this is something that will show the community that we're actually listening, we actually understand what we're doing. I'm sorry to say at the moment, I'm not the one who's confused here. And I think that foregoing the money that is being lost on a daily basis is not a wise thing to do. Thank you. Please vote for this motion.
Okay, thank you. We're now going to vote. So we need those online to please give us their vote. Green is yes for the motion and red is no, against. So Councillor Green, what is your vote?
My vote is no, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Wheatland, what would your vote be?
A very strong red.
Thank you. Councillor Edinger.
I support the motion.
Councillor Fitzgerald, your vote?
Against, Madam Mayor.
Against? Thank you. The vote is lost at 5-6. Thank you very much. Next item, CD 2436, Community Safety, CCTV and Technology Initiatives. The item was moved by Councillor Robbins and seconded by Councillor Woodall at the December 2024 ordinary meeting of Council. At the time of deferral, Councillor Robbins introduced the motion, Councillor Fitzgerald spoke against the motion, and Councillor Woodall spoke to support the motion. So I understand Councillor Fitzgerald has would like to propose an amendment. Councillor, do you wish to proceed?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, in the absence of Councillors Woodall and Robbins, I have a proposed amendment which is on the screen in front of you there. I think by default that the original motion will lapse, and so instead removing an amendment motion, that will become the head motion.
Just let me clarify that, please.
You're right, that's
fine. Ms Newman, Head of Governance, will just clarify that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you, at the previous meeting, the motion was moved and seconded by Councillor Robbins and Councillor Woodall, so the motion is on the table. In their absence, we still proceed with that motion being on the table, and your request would be an amendment to that motion, Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you. Apologies for that. Madam Mayor, I'm in your hands as to how to proceed, but I'm happy to speak to the motion now if you like.
Well, I'll find a seconder first. Councillor Spanbrook. Yes, carry on, Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, councillors. The essence of the amendment that you have before you is to do two things. The first is to separate out, I think, what was Councillor Robbins' initial proposal, that is for a scheme by which we would offer rebates to individuals looking for personal installation of CCTV with no particular requirements to then link that into a sort of broader database of cameras. That is being pulled out of the current amendment to be considered separately. So you'll note that it says that there is a separate consultation process on the Home CCT rebate program. I've discussed that with Councillor Robbins, and I don't mean to speak for her in her absence, but my understanding is that she is comfortable with that. The second is to ensure that as we progress to community consultation on this, and I must say I still have some misgivings about the overall program, but I am happy to go out to the community to seek their views. We wanted to be clear that this is a consultation that is genuinely open to the community, and all aspects of that are open. So that we're not presenting something as a fait accompli and simply advising the community that this is what we're doing. Rather, we're seeking genuine feedback, as we always do, but specifically on the detail of our plan, and specifically on whether, and if so, to what extent, our policy should include certain aspects of the proposals that we've been discussing. Finally, in doing so, we have decoupled the aspects of this that were operational in nature. So part of, I think, the confusion that had arisen is that a series of proposals to upgrade security features on existing community buildings, matters that would ordinarily be done as a matter of course operationally, had gotten tied into this particular proposal. That, I think, has greatly muddied the waters, and the officers have assisted by preparing part of this this proposed amendment that clarifies that those matters that would ordinarily simply be operational matters are now no longer going to be bundled up with the broader consideration both of the rebate policy, rebate program, and also the policy. So look, I think in light of this approach, that we are breaking out the operational matters, that we are considering the rebate program separately, and that we are going to genuine consultation on a kind of root and branch approach to what should be in our CCTV policy, I am comfortable to progress this to community. I'm very keen to see what the community have to say about this matter, and I'm sure other elected members are too. On that basis, with this amendment, it is a motion that I would be willing to support, and hence I am moving it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. Councillor Spanbrook, do you wish to speak now or later?
I'll reserve my right, thank you.
I need a speaker against. Councillor Edinger, are you a speaker against?
Oh, I just have a question.
Question? Yes, Councillor.
I wonder if Councillor Fitzgerald will consider in item C putting in that the CCTV policy be sent to the Policy and Legislation Committee.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Councillor Edinger. While I'm not opposed to that in principle, because this is going out for public consultation, I would be keen to see the result of that consultation before we make a decision about where to go, because it may be that that consultation answers the question for us. If there is a very strong community view that this is not something we should be adopting, then perhaps there's no need to go to Policy and Legislation Committee. You'll note that an EMIS will be scheduled for discussion before it's presented in December. I think if we are minded at that point to send it to Policy and Legislation Committee, that would be the appropriate time. I just worry about saying to the community, here's your opportunity to consult, and then we're going to pull it off to a specific committee.
Thank you. Yes, is there a speaker against? Councillor Lim.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I'm speaking against the decoupling amendment because, in my opinion, this is not really an operational in nature. or a renewal. And it's not simply continuing what we're doing. It's actually more of an upgrade to our community approach. So in short, it's delivering a higher level of service for safety. So I think that this rollout plan have been developed with all these elements in a cohesive way. It's not standalone. So it's to address sort of the existing gaps in our safety infrastructure. So I think separating the key components sort of undermines the strength of the holistic approach that this is trying to achieve. I feel that, it could weaken the effectiveness of this initiative as a whole, in my opinion. Also, I think that having separate consultation could be ineffective. It could duplicate a few of the common efforts in this rollout plan. Plus, I think it might send a confusing message to the community where they would think, haven't we just done this around CCTV? So I just think that we just need to be very clear and provide a lot of clarity in how we engage our residents and not separate it out when it's such a common initiative we're trying to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lim. A speaker for. Do we actually have another speaker against? I need to know that first. There doesn't appear to be another speaker against, so I'll go straight to Councillor Spanbrook. You wish to speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just on a few comments that were made by some councillors against it, that this whole proposal, it's estimated total, estimated only $3.8 million. And when you consider Councillor Fitzgerald's amendment, which it certainly has, a lot of credibility to it, because one area of it, which is it's going back to the renewal, it's the upgrade and the renewal of existing assets. I don't believe they should be considered as new items, and that's how the community will review them to go out to community consultation, because they're already there. And they really should go to the the city's annual asset renewal and maintenance program. And bear in mind that estimated total for that is $1.3 million. So that should be pulled out of it, because once again, it's not adding, they're not new, it's actually, they're already existing. And the other thing also, just to point out, that which I would like the officers, which I'm sure that they do listen and they are very good, that with the last point of Councillor Fitzgerald's amendment D, the proposed budget for the different proposals be detailed in the consultation, which I hope that would also include the AI, even though cameras come with it. However, they do require licences or subscriptions, so that'll be an ongoing fee. And also throughout the explanation or the officer's agenda item, it doesn't actually have anything in there that I could see for replacement costs, estimated replacement costs. It does have maintenance, but as cameras are outdoors, they do actually, they're out in the elements, of the weather. So therefore, there no doubt will be some replacements. And I do know that the existing ones at the moment, they do need replacing. So therefore, with regard to the CCTV rebate, that should be very much a separate item completely when it goes out to community consultation, because you don't wish to confuse people. However, if it was all lumped up in one, people may just peruse it, scan it, and they just think that it's all a part and parcel of the 3.8 million. However, we just need to pull things out so people can actually have more clarity when they view it. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Councillor Fitzgerald, can you please wrap up the debate?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Lim. Look, I have some sympathy for your position. The matter I was persuaded of is that there are existing cameras on city buildings, and that in the ordinary course of event, upgrades to those buildings, and I take your point that an upgrade can include the increase of service that is being discussed, but equally, officers tell me some of these cameras are simply old and need replacing, and so upgrade will be a switch from, in some cases, fairly old, fairly low resolution cameras to newer, higher resolution cameras. That is the kind of upgrade that would ordinarily not come to council for consideration. It would be a part of the budget process. We would have an overall approval of the finance to do that, but specific decisions of that kind would not usually be the sorts of things we consider quite appropriately. That, I think, is distinct from the CCTV policy, which proposes a fairly radical new approach to increasing the level of surveillance and the mechanisms by which surveillance have done, and the role of the Safer Melville team in responding to the surveillance undertaken. So while I accept there is some overlap, and that if the whole thing progresses, those will be essentially part of the same network, there remains, I think, a conceptual difference between an upgrade to a camera that exists on a building and a new approach that asks, ought we to put fixed cameras in these identified parks where they are not presently? Ought we to increase the number of fixed surveillance points throughout the city? And then finally, the home rebate program was a separate initiative that Councillor Robbins had proposed. It has gotten caught up in this discussion because there is significant overlap between them, particularly when the initial proposal, not Councillor Robbins, it must be said, but when the officers suggested that we bundle that program into some of the ongoing databases that are linked to other councils' CCTV rebate programs. All of that started to link Councillor Robbins' fairly modest proposal that individuals who were purchasing this technology might get a rebate in the same way that we have the Aged Melville Fund that provides rebates for technology, got caught up in, I think, a much bigger debate than Councillor Robbins had been intending. That is the debate about what should our policy on this new CCTV technology be. Those are separable. I think there is a clear conceptual difference between an individual choosing to put a Ring camera on their door and a decision by the city to use AI technology to monitor large parts of public open space. This amendment tries to deal with those two things separately for the reasons that we've outlined. So on that basis, that's the amendments being proposed. Thank you, councillors, and I'm happy to proceed to a vote.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Fitzgerald. We're now going to vote, and I'll just mention that Councillor Wheatland has departed the meeting. We are voting on the amendment which Councillor Fitzgerald has brought forward. Okay, thank you. Councillors online, I'm going to ask you for your vote. Councillor Green.
I vote against, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Edinger.
I support the amendment.
And Councillor Fitzgerald.
For the amendment, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. The amendment is carried 7-3. We're now back to the substantive motion. Since we do not have our mover and seconder present, we'll just go straight to the vote, unless somebody has some pressing comments to make about the substantive motion. If not, we'll go straight to the vote. So we're voting on the substantive motion as amended. All those in favour vote green, and those against vote red. So I'll ask the elected members who are online. Councillor Green, what is your vote?
I vote for, Madam Mayor.
For. Councillor Edinger
I vote against.
and Councillor Fitzgerald.
For, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. That is carried 8-2. Thank you. Moving on to the next item, which is CD 2543, non-financial advocacy priorities for the Advocacy Strategy 2025. Prior to tabling the officer's recommendation, I understand that Councillor Barber has an amendment to this item. However, we'll need a mover and seconder for the officer recommendation first. So can we have a mover and seconder, please? I can't see anybody online. Can I have a mover and seconder? Councillor Hong, seconded. Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. We now, is it okay with the mover and seconder if we just go straight to the amendment? Would you wish to speak now, Councillor Hong? Opening the debate.
Yes, I will. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And councillors, the purpose of identifying these priorities is to guide both council and the administration in progressing our non-financial advocacy efforts with key stakeholders. It's important to recognise that this work aligns closely with our advocacy policy, which was endorsed in December 2024. That policy provides the framework, and these priorities give us the practical focus we need. By endorsing this list of non-financial priorities, we are taking a crucial step towards ensuring that our advocacy efforts are strategic, coordinated, and consistent. This is particularly important as we move forward with the city's first ever advocacy strategy. Ultimately, the outcome we're seeking is a clearly defined set of advocacy priorities that will strengthen our ability to influence decision-making at other levels of government on matters that may not involve direct financial investment, but are just as critical to the well-being and future of our community. I commend the work done by officers to bring this forward and encourage my fellow councillors to support the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hong. Councillor Fitzgerald, as a seconder, do you wish to speak now or later?
Only to note, Madam Mayor, that every councillor, I suspect, will have issues in the non-financial advocacy strategy that speak to them most. I hope I'm not out of line when I suggest that Councillor Lee probably is going to be leading the charge along with the Mayor on our tourism strategy. I certainly note that I will be as loud and hopefully as effective as I can when it comes to advocating for the state to fulfil its role as outlined in the Libraries Agreement. I think there is significant additional work that could be done there, and I look forward to helping to achieve that. And I think that the overall suite that we have, plus the amendments proposed by Councillor Barber, set us up well to identify matters that are going to have very big impact if we can get them right. And so I think this is not just a good overall plan or strategy, but I think it's a good overall plan or strategy that identifies some really important issues that our community really will get great benefit from us advocating for. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. Is there a speaker against, or would you like to move your amendment now?
Am I allowed to move my amendment now?
Yes, please do. Councillor Barber.
So, Madam Mayor, I spoke at the ABF last week and asked if it wasn't too late to add a couple of items, and City officers said that that was okay. They did their research. And the 2 officers I'd like to add after in attachment 1.
Before you proceed, I think it has been circulated. We need a seconder.
I second it.
Oh, Councillor Edinger, thank you. Councillor Barber.
Okay, the 2 things I'd like to add are 1, to advocate for the improved erosion control along the Adderdale foreshore, and B, advocate for the installation of a right turning traffic light from Petra Street, Bicton onto Canning Highway. Part B is part of my plan to try and make road safety paramount on Canning Highway with our feeder streets. And Part A, and it's been pointed out by the Mayor that I should extend Part A, because whilst I'm passionate about the Adderdale Alfred Cove foreshore, it's been highlighted to me that we should also be concerned about our Melville foreshore in general, particularly Mount Pleasant and Applecross. So I'm happy to add a further amendment and say, for Part A, advocating for improved erosion control along the Adderdale foreshore and all the Melville city foreshore, something to those effects, words to those effects.
And the rest of the Melville foreshore? Atterdale and other City of Melville foreshore areas.
And Madam Mayor, I'd also like to ask Councillor Barbara if she would include some additional information in her
Okay,
amendment.
first of all, Councillor Edinger, would you be agreeable to that?
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you. And what were the changes you'd like to make?
In section B, I would like to add after Petra Street, put and Ardros Street, Mount Pleasant.
And Ardros Street, Mount Pleasant, you know the intersection of Ardros and Canning Highway? I would imagine you're talking about the intersection of Ardros Street and Canning Highway. Would that be correct? Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If Councillor Barber agrees with that.
Madam Mayor, can I just ask, I'd like to ask Councillor Edinger with regard to that amendment.
Well, it's not an amendment yet, it's only a suggestion.
No, okay, well, it's a proposed amendment. Councillor Edinger, you're referring to like an actual arrow. So you're referring to heading north or heading south, or both ways?
Yeah. I recently had to try and turn through that intersection and it was nearly impossible, and it wasn't even at peak hour.
Just a follow-up, please, Madam Mayor. So you're referring to turning, so you're on Ardros Street, you've gone past the church, the primary school, the church, and you're heading north, so you're wanting to turn right onto Canning Highway towards the city?
Yes, or heading south and wanting to turn towards Fremantle.
Oh, okay, both ways. All right, okay, no worries, thank you. I agree with you there, yes.
I think right turning is probably a word we need to include in that. Councillor Barber, would you be happy to accept that as the mover of the motion, of the amendment?
Ordinarily, I would be very happy to accept that because, as I've already said, that I'm quite passionate about our feeder roads and Canning Highway and safety. However, I don't like creating amendments on the fly. And I had to get my amendments in a week ago so that the officers could respond. And I'm just a bit worried about can we vote on it without officer involvement?
Mr McCarthy, would you be able to respond to that last part, the Ardros Street right turning in Mount Pleasant?
Oh, and that should be left and right turning for Ardros Street.
Pardon?
It should be left and right.
Oh, left and right, but you can normally turn left with ease.
Oh, not heading towards Fremantle, not necessarily.
Mr McCarthy, can you respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Edinger. So just clarifying, you're having right-hand turn arrows at Ardros Street onto Canning Highway heading east, and on Ardros Street, right-hand arrow turning right, so going west on Canning Highway, is that correct?
Yes, yes, yep.
Okay, well, I guess that's something that we could approach Main Roads on. Obviously, the advocating would first go to Main Roads to discuss those options with them. So I think that is a request that's got obvious benefits for helping with the traffic flows at that intersection.
Okay, thank you. So would you be prepared to accept that with Mr McCarthy's response?
Yep, if the city officers say it's okay and we're not doing it on the fly, then I guess that's okay.
Right, thank you. Councillor Councillor Barber, do you wish to continue opening that debate on that amendment?
No,
No, you're happy?
yeah, I'm very happy,
All right.
and I hope everybody else is happy.
Yes, Councillor Edinger, do you wish to speak now or later?
I just wish to say that it's just right-hand turning arrows at Ardra Street, because left is good to go. Yeah. Just that I think this is an excellent amendment by Councillor Barber. I've seen the erosion along our foreshore, and it certainly is alarming. So we really do need to get that looked at. And I think road safety, the cost of putting in the traffic lights versus the cost of accidents is we'll get a good return on investment. Thank you.
Is there a speaker against this amendment, this total amendment? If there's no speaker against, I declare it carried. We're now back to the substantive motion. Oh, Councillor Green, did I miss you? Did you want to speak against the amendment?
Yes, please, Madam Mayor.
Oh, okay, sorry, yes. I think we can probably make let you do that since I didn't see you. Thank you.
I'm speaking against not because I disagree with perhaps the Councillor Barber's suggestions, but I just feel that they, particularly the second one, is quite specific, and I don't think it's really it's really appropriate for an advocacy policy to be looking at specific things like this. Perhaps with a rewording, it would be to incorporate more encompassing concepts such as road safety, which Councillor Barber mentioned, including looking at specific areas perhaps, but for the overarching advocacy to be a broader topic and a wider reaching topic that is potentially going to benefit more areas across our city. For what it's worth, I think perhaps the wording of the first one could be something along the lines of the Canning and Swan River foreshores falling within the city of Melville, and that way we're not looking at anywhere in particular. But I guess mainly I just feel that it is a little bit on the fly here. I understand whether it was we're talking about last at the moment last minute sort of amendments, or whether we're talking about an amendment from a week ago when we've had EMIS discussion, and there's probably been opportunity for people to raise additional ideas at that stage. So for that reason, I'm inclined to vote against this motion. The
amendment. Yes, okay. All right. A speaker, are there any other speakers against this amendment? There is? Okay, well, I'll take a speaker for. Is there a speaker for this amendment? Councillor Spanbrook.
Sorry about that. I just put a nut in my mouth. Just on this this proposed amendment, that it's only an advocacy. It's a non-financial advocacy. So it is not going to cost the city anything, or the ratepayers, I should say, and it is just adding to the list that is really quite an extraordinary list of advocacy. And if there are councillors who are very much in touch with their community, do see that there is a need here, well then there is no harm in this. It's not going to be a big cost, you know, and a huge effort. It is just advocating for it. So I very much support this amendment. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Lee, you're speaking against.
No, I just want to query, why did we put that other city of Melville foreshore areas? From my understanding, there are only 4 suburbs involved, which is Picton, Atterdale, Applecross and Mount Pleasant. So it's a Canning River and Swan River. So how did we end up with the city of Melville foreshores? There are no other suburbs affected. So I thought it doesn't make sense, you know, with the city of Melville foreshore areas. Thank you.
Well, it's essentially the same thing. You're saying we can specify the suburbs as opposed to making a general statement. It's really the same thing, Councillor Lee. I think unless somebody specifically wants to have it suburb by suburb, otherwise just this is quite encompassing in case something gets missed. Okay, well, let's move on. We've got Councillor Barber to close the debate on the amendment, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I really probably just need to speak to Councillor Green's comments that he thought these amendments were too specific. And I think that we need to make our advocacy claims specific. If you talk about having a goal, an advocacy goal, it should be a SMART goal, specific, measurable, achievable. And so we definitely need to make these specific. If it's too broad, it'll be wishy-washy and it definitely won't be achieved. Looking at the advocacy list, it's got things like advocate for delivery of a dedicated AM peak bus lane on Canning Highway, a very specific advocacy goal. So these are specific. I've given the officers plenty of notice to look at these. They're specific, yes to Adderall and Alfred Cove, because that's what I'm advocating for. The Mayor brought up tonight to extend it to Applecross, Mount Pleasant. So I'm happy to add the Swan River or Canning River or other Melville foreshore as we've got. But I think that we need to be looking at things in particular and making them as specific as possible and then achieving these goals for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barber. We're now going to the vote. Green is for the amendment and red, no, is against the amendment. And just as a matter of interest, Brentwood also has a foreshore. For those online, Councillor Green, could you please give me your vote?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I vote against.
Against. Councillor Edinger?
I support.
Thank you. Councillor Fitzgerald?
For the amendment, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. That's carried 9-1. We're back to the substantive motion. Okay, Councillor Hong, is there any debate on the substantive motion? Any voice against? Okay, Councillor Hong, can you please wrap up the debate?
Thank you, Mayor. Great addition to the officer's recommendations, Councillor Barber. Just to wrap things up, it is...
Oh, just a moment. Before you do that, I have just noticed here Councillor Spanbrook had an amendment. Wasn't that already...
What is my amendment? Oh, you're referring to the non-financial advocacy?
Yes, we
I
have
do
your.
apologise. Yes, I do
You have
apologise.
also an amendment, councillor Spanbrook.
Yes,
and
I neglected to reply to that. I completely forgot. But Director McCarthy did reply to me, and the fact that it was a non-financial advocacy, so we're better off maybe putting something like that in a financial one, not non-financial. And in the meantime, I did speak to the convener of one of the burnt-out areas, and
Okay, so yes, I see what you're saying.
apologies there.
I need to get a bit of advice on this. Okay, so councillor Spanbrook, you're withdrawing it, I gather.
Yes, withdrawing it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we are on the substantive motion. Councillor Hong, please wrap up the debate.
Thank you, Mayor. Great addition to the officer's recommendations, Councillor Barber. Just to wrap things up, it is important to have clear, consistent priorities when we are advocating on behalf of our community. This strategy gives us a strong foundation to speak with one voice, especially when it comes to non-financial matters that can really shape the future of our city. Again, thanks to the officers for the work behind this, and I would love to have your support on this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now going to the vote. So we're voting on the substantive motion as amended. So green is for support, yes, and red is for no support. You do not support the substantive motion as amended. Councillor Green, what is your vote?
I vote for, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Edinger?
I vote to support the motion.
Thank you. And Councillor Fitzgerald?
For, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item 15, motions with previous notice. Motions with previous notice were brought forward for the convenience of those in attendance, so there's no further motions with previous notice for discussion this evening. 16, motions without previous notice. There are no motions without previous notice for this evening. And no matters, item 17, no matters for which the meeting was not closed for any matter tonight. They were
Excuse
all
me, Madam Mayor.
discussed. Councillor Spanbrook.
Just before you close, I must have missed it. The item, I don't know what I was doing, which was the annual review of policy schedule. So it's done and dusted?
Yes, it was on block, and I read them all out one at a time to make sure that everybody knew what we were voting on.
Oh, okay. Well, I did have discussions with you about that a couple of weeks ago, if you recall, regarding the elected member meeting room and facilities.
Well, it's been voted on now. You can discuss it with members after and raise that as a matter outside this council meeting.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Item 18, decisions made while meeting was closed. There were no decisions because the meeting was not closed. Item 19, closure. For the purposes of the minutes, can I have the following councillors confirm that they're still in attendance? Councillor Edinger.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Green. Oh, you're silenced again. Your mic is off.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, I'm still in attendance.
Thank you. Councillor Fitzgerald.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. There being no further business, I declare the meeting closed at 8:54. Thank you very much for your attendance.
See you all.
Thank you very much. See you later.
Good night.